Greetings, YouTube. I used to know a guy named Dan. He worked at the local comic store, a comic store that no longer exists, so I'm not going to worry about mentioning this fact. And I bought this t-shirt at that said comic store in 1988. Yes, I've had this shirt since 1988, which means it's older than some of the people watching this video. And he and I were never close. We talked to each other in the comic store every Friday because I was in there every Friday, and sometimes it's Saturdays. It was the go-to place. I hung out a lot in comic stores back then. Just got here. I already had cat hair on my face. And we did hit the same parties on occasion, but that's about the depth of our connections. But one day while we were having conversation at the comic store, so it's in public, he's working, it's in public. It was slow at the moment. He reveals that he owns an SS uniform. Not a costume, not a reproduction, an actual SS uniform. He said he felt compelled to own it because it fits so well. He was a slight person, an excellent condition. And I gotta tell you, at the time, I just let it wash. I literally just let it slide. But I found myself thinking about Dan yesterday at work. I don't know why. It kind of popped into my head. This sometimes happens. I've spoken to my therapist about it. He says it's probably about the whole process of as we get older, our memories begin to reorganize themselves to a certain degree. So sometimes we find ourselves thinking about things in the past, even though we are not suffering from any form of dementia, just because that's what's going on. Well, maybe that's what happened. I found myself thinking about the old comic store. I thought about Dan, and I thought about Dan's SS uniform. And it suddenly all kind of clicked in my head, and I'm like, holy crap, Dan was a Nazi! Because let's be honest, nobody owns an SS uniform, an actual SS uniform, complete from head to toe, unless they are a Nazi. Because Dan didn't collect military memorabilia. He did have some wall hanger style fantasy swords, but lots of people in the gaming and the comic community have those. He said he didn't collect uniforms. He didn't really have many references on the whole concept of what was going on in the military during World War II. Nope. Dan just owned one uniform, and it just happened to be the uniform of a group that was one of the most oppressive entities in the history of humanity, the SS. But I could let that slide. My privilege allowed me to be blind to it because it was never, ever going to affect me. If the SS had come goose stepping down the main street of my city, they weren't going to target me. I'd be really far down their list of people to target. They'd get around to me eventually because, I'm not a fascist. But I would have time to get out. But the Jewish people, the Muslim people, the black people, the brown people, the Asian people, all of them, the gay people, the trans people, no. They'd be gone long before they ever got around to me. And I could just ignore the fact that Dan was a Nazi. It just didn't affect me. And that's pretty much the definition of privilege.